Hey, Doug, thanks for joining me today to talk about you and your business and your career. It's been fun chatting with you, before we hopped on here and kind of your insights into what's going on in the wider economy. But first, can you walk us and the listeners through your background, your career, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. First of all, Eamon, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to our conversation. Thinking about my career, I, I s- I started off on the lowest rung of the advertising world that you could possibly start in, and I didn't realize it at the time. I was just so happy to be involved. But my first job was in the traffic department of a CBS owned and operated station out of Philadelphia, and it was thrilling. I wanted to be in an agency, but this was close enough. And then I worked my way into advertising agencies in Philly, moved to New York, so got national and global experience. Um, Advertising on a host of different sorts of industries, companies, businesses, and I think that's what originally attracted me to the whole advertising agency side because it just was so diverse and lots of different experiences. I learned early that there was a because like I got into automotive aftermarket and then automotive manufacturing with different car brands. And I found out and learned that there was a segment called car guys at the time. And I guess it's car people now, but car guys. And I'm like, man, I don't want to do this for the rest of my career. It felt just too limiting. So I branched out, did a lot of other things in the advertising space, then switched over to the strategic consultancy side. And that was eyes wide open going into that. But it was really cool because we was working further upstream with not just the CMO or advertising VP, but it was with the entire C-suite and the executive leadership team and understanding and learning more about the business and the challenges and the problems from a business side, not just a marketing or advertising side. And that was really exciting just to make that switch and be able to see things at a new perspective.
What was it like making that switch? Because if you came up in advertising, obviously your mind is and your training is all around marketing, advertising, everything like that. Was there anything that you did in advertising that allowed you to make that switch more successfully? Or was there like a learning curve when you had to pop over to the strategic
Yeah,
side?
that's a great question. There's always going to be a bit of a learning curve, but in the jump into consultancy side, the pocket was marketing and advertising, so that there's a good base to lean on. But starting to understand the inner workings of organizations and whether it's mid-market or enterprise, they have a lot of the same challenges, a lot of the same problems, but just with enterprise, it's just bigger and broader in terms of the challenges that you got to face and how you need to you know, kind of work the problem from the inside, so to speak.
Yeah, that's interesting. So jumping over to the strategic consultancy, how is your business structured and like your how are you delivering to your clients? Like what's that look like tactically right now?
Yeah, so with Next, it's really exciting for me because it's basically a hybrid of my professional experiences in advertising and marketing, and then on the strategic consulting side. Look at it; it's more of a unifying way and an approach. So it's not just silos of strategy or silos of creative or silos of execution, but drawing a through line all the way across four different levers of we call convergency or levers of growth. But starting with data, I worked on IBM and understand that data is really the baseline for any effective system, especially when you layer on AI. But so we've got data and AI is one of the levers. Customer experience and employee experience is the second lever. And the third one is brand positioning and differentiation. And that's in differentiation, that includes kind of the creative aspect of it. And then also connected to brand is the thought leadership, executive thought leadership signaling and the messaging that they can and should be doing in their markets. So it's there's a through line of brand for sure, but how that idea of brand gets executed throughout the organization.
I really like how you position that, not just a marketing agency. You're kind of like you're a growth partner. You're hitting a bunch of the different levers. You're talking
Hmm.
my language when it comes to data and AI, and of course on the marketing side of things. One thing you said that was interesting, I want to hear a little bit more about is you focus on customer experience and then like the employee experience. I understand like from a marketing perspective and a data perspective, like looking at the customer experience is definitely going to drive value, increase the revenue, all those types of things. What do you do on the employee experience side? Is that like process improvements, or like what does that mean for you and your firm?
Yeah, I love this question because there's a lot of complexity built into that, but sometimes the answer is finding simplicity to it. And pretty much we always start with some level of discovery. And if there's a challenge or a problem that companies are having with the employees, there's a typical pathway kind of working it backwards, but there is definitely that synergy between the customer experience, and we got to break down that employee experience into a couple different segments. If we look at it from customer facing employees, they have a direct impact on the customer experience. So that is something you've got to get aligned and synchronized. And then you've got non-customer facing employees who it's important for them to understand. And this is where with any size organization, not everyone understands the vision and the mission of the company and why what they're doing is important. And I don't want to overstate that like that's some mystical thing. And if you fix that, everything's going to be really, 100% fine. But that is a good place to start. And it's just internal communications
Hmm.
and making sure you've got a rapport with employees and that they feel that their opinions are understood or valued and trusted within a certain level of degree.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. The employees, can take the company in one direction or another depending on their buy-in, right? So see that in any industry really. So Doug, you also mentioned data and AI, which I always like to dive into, especially AI is the new hot thing over the last couple of years. It's growing in adoption, and it's going to inevitably change kind of how we work and how businesses operate going forward. When you look at the employee experience and also leveraging data and AI, like how do those two work together? Like how do you see AI integrating into like the work streams of the companies you work with? What are your thoughts on that? Is it replacing employees? Is it enhancing employees? How do you see that? How do you approach that?
This is another great question. We've done over 75 AI workshops with executive leaders, one-on-ones, and then some with a few other sessions with the next tier down from executive leadership, like department heads or VPs of business units and things like that. It's been very interesting and eye-opening in some regards. In other ways, it aligns with a lot of the research that we've been looking at and analyzing. But the first thing I'd like to mention regarding the AI side of things in connection to data. AI at the executive level, they've kind of bought in at a very high level of, hey, this is going to help us with efficiencies, i.e. like save money and become more profitable. And I'm probably generalizing too much, but it kind of stops there. And the organization we're moving ahead with AI, but there's not really a plan after that. And it's left up to VPs, business unit leaders or department heads to figure it out. And a lot of times there's not a dedicated budget. So they've got to figure out what that program is going to be and then go back and ask for budget. And then hopefully they get it to move forward. That's like the first part of the puzzle. Then the second one, what you're talking about is, is this going to reduce headcount, or how is this going to free up our employees to do bigger things? And we really come at it from, it's our first and foremost, when we're working through extended workshops with teams in terms of how they implement AI, it's really figuring out not how you just bolt it on to make their current workflows better and more efficient, but it's actually taking a step back and say, okay, now with this new technology, how can we reimagine? How can we rethink a more efficient and more effective way to implement AI? Efficiency is one thing, but effectiveness is the other. If it's just efficiency, then it's not going to probably work out the way the organization would like it to. It's got to have some level of effectiveness. To get that level of effectiveness, you've got to be able to make sure that there are checkpoints within that new AI workflow that has human interaction, human involvement, and human intelligence.
I love how you said that. I have a similar experience. I help companies implement AI and have implemented AI across, dozens of companies that I've worked with. And one thing that I keep hearing when I first talk to companies is they're buying a bunch of AI tools, but they don't know, necessarily how it's helping them get better, or, the owner wants to implement, or the C-suite wants to implement AI. And exactly like you said, there's no clear strategy, and having the AI system or the AI agent integrated with the human workflow is what I've seen work the best. It's not
Hmm.
replacing humans. It's allowing, it's doing the things that the humans, don't necessarily want to do, freeing them up to do that higher leverage work. And that is what really like allows a company to scale with AI. So that's just kind of been my experience. It sounds like you are in a similar boat as well.
Yeah, exactly. If the company is only its sole focus is efficiencies and to save money, they're not coming at it with the right headspace, and they really need to take a step back and work through that problem or that challenge a little bit better with a bigger view of the future, not just next quarter.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, this is my point of view. I wonder if you agree or disagree. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But AI is the future, and really taking the time to think about how your company is going to leverage AI going forward is, I think every company should be doing that, whether it's, med spa, local med spa, local coffee shop, I
Hmm.
guess, or whatever you want to say, all the way up to like, the Fortune 500, everywhere in between. It's here to stay, and you need to think about how it's going to get integrated into your workflow, not just buying a bunch of different disparate tools that may or may not work well together.
Yeah, so we are definitely aligned on a lot of things here. So in our broader workshops for AI and data, part of those sessions are helping an organization or company understand: do they need to build, do they need to buy, or can they just as a simple subscription sort of thing. And back to my other point, it's not a bolt on to what they're doing. So they definitely need to have an AI and data roadmap. And I like to connect AI with data, because AI without the data is really kind of meaningless. It took me a little bit. Yeah, I struggled with it personally and professionally. So coming out of the agency background with Gen AI to develop, quote, creative, it was that was hard for me to make that leap at first. And I did a lot of exploration on lots of different platforms, and it still took a lot of work to be able to get something that I would feel comfortable presenting to a client, let alone running it somewhere. So, but there's lots of other facets and applications of AI than just creative to our business. And I've really grown to use it for a lot of strategy work, feasibility studies. And I guess the one thing I want to stress, because I think a lot of people still have this understanding or thought process around AI, is, you got to be able to prompt it, but they expect, even if you've got a really good initial prompt, that answer is going to be, that's it. That's gold. That's the silver bullet. And it's not. It's a very iterative process to work through, whether it's creative or feasibility study or anything that in kind of in our world that we're working with. It will help cut down the process, but there's no magic wand with this. And it still takes time, and it takes human experience and expertise to be able to kind of work the problem, even with AI.
Right. Yeah. There's no, it's not a magic wand. It's not a silver bullet. You can tell the people who are just spitting out product, or work with AI, but not having that, second level of human thought and organization to it. So
Yeah, I
I
mean, you see
definitely,
that all the time on LinkedIn. It's like, hey, look what I just did in 20 minutes with AI. And you're like, well, I guess for someone who's never done that type of work, it is amazing. But is it really good enough?
right. Right. Speaking of good enough, I guess this is a good segue. I want to hear, Doug, how do you measure success with your clients in any type of engagement? Like what are some of the key indicators that you use to measure success, with your clients?
Yeah. So we have a pretty diverse client roster, and that, I think, that comes back to my initial foray with agency life, of just wanting to be able to learn new things and have new challenges and problems to help solve. But how we judge how well we're doing with them is client tenure. How long have we been working with clients? Like our our first client, we're still working with them 5 years later, and we've got a meeting coming up next week about 2026. So it's been a very exciting ride with them. But beyond that, it's also the growth with clients. Well, usually they're going to come in on with some specific pain point. We got those four different levers, and it works better when they are working it as a whole system rather than just one or two combinations. But the way we judge success with that we're having with clients is, how many levers can we be helping them with at the same time?
Awesome. Awesome. I like that. Yeah, the longevity, how many levers are you working on? That's good. Okay, so we talked a lot about the client side, your thoughts, philosophy. How do you tactically run your business? I know you have employees. Like, what's your internal system look like? You're using a CRM, project management software. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, we're evolving. So we started right at the start of the COVID pandemic. So in some ways, that wasn't the best time to start, but it actually, some of it did work to our favor because everyone needed to digitize their business. So that worked out pretty well from that standpoint. But I think in the back of my mind, we're always at bootstrapping stage, and we're beyond that, but it's still there. So this 2026 is our year really to start kind of eating our own dog food. So looking at we all as individual teams and people, we're using AI, but we're getting to the stage now where we can really start to use it on the back end and back office systems where we up until recently we were able to kind of get by with what we were doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm going through a similar kind of phase as well, trying to get my internal operating system up and running. Any like tips and tricks or I guess pitfalls to avoid when going from bootstrapping to making the transition to more of like a smooth operating system?
I've kind of learned the hard way, but sometimes it's just the nature of the business. You get you're in it too much. I've been learning to pull myself out and be able to start looking further ahead. Not that it was just quarterly, but just looking at the business at a bigger sense and realizing that we're not just in that bootstrapping mode. And um, what can I do, and what can the company start to think think about things differently for growth.
Okay. Yeah. I know we kind of like started talking about this, but love to hear what success look like, this time next year. You had a wildly successful year. Like, what does that look like for you and your company?
What we're tracking right now is again, there's always something that can go wrong, but we're anticipating a pretty healthy 2026. And that means internal growth with existing clients as well as a good amount of new business growth. And that's what we've been working on this quarter to get out launch in Q1 of next year, of a more defined and better regimented business development pipeline.
What are you doing for your business development now? Like, what's the process and stuff?
There's a couple things. We've got a quarterly newsletter email that goes out, and that's a fairly decent sized list. And we also have podcast Brave Business Triumphs, and it's that's we're just starting our sixth season. It's been fits and starts, and this is last season, season 5 was the first time I think we had at least one episode per month. So we've kind of got that into a groove, and we're finding different ways to change it up in terms of the format. We've settled into a groove at the end of season 5 with a panel kind of roundtable of our SMEs for our specific levers of growth. And we've getting to the point where we're getting a lot of really good discussions, not just asking one SME at a time, but getting a good rotation of input on a specific scenario. So that's exciting where that's going, as well as having key category guests on.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So your growth goals, based the way you said it, obviously grow your revenue, get more clients likely, and get your internal systems squared away as much as you can. If you could like wave a magic wand and remove one obstacle or take advantage of one opportunity to get there to have a successful 2026, what is that? What is that thing?
Yeah, for me, I would say awareness. it's it's we started from scratch, and kind of it was kind of the build it and they will come theory, and it did work out. But we're trying to grow awareness, and we need to do some other things to switch that up. And I guess to follow up on the rest of my answer for that previous question is getting involved beyond what we've been doing on LinkedIn and search, and part of that bleeds into search on AI and making sure that we're feeding into that cycle.
Oh yeah, that is like a fertile ground right now. Like the more you can put into that, the better, the long term it's good. That's the future, honestly.
Yep.
So that's a good point. Okay, Doug, definitely storied career, 5 years in business. Things are going well. Do you have anything that you look back on that you say like, okay, that was a pivotal moment? Or do you have any like, I guess, advice for somebody who is looking to kind of launch their own consultancy? Like what, like reflection on like a pivotal moment, or like advice like, hey, do this, do that as you're getting started in maybe that first year?
Yeah, great question. I found myself on the outside looking in on a career, and I kind of took that as a sign. I was like, okay, maybe it's time to switch it up and do something different. Which I pivoted to a different industry, and I found out that really wasn't for me either. But in the back of my head, I kept having these thoughts of, hey, why don't you take the best of agency and best of consultancy and bring it together so there wouldn't be it's not a company that's based on legacy process or procedure or legacy, and probably most importantly, legacy mindset of how to do things. That gnawed at me, and it would never go away until I got put down on a piece of paper and started working through how to make that happen. So I guess where I'm going with this is, if someone out there is, feeling that or hearing that voice in their head, it's probably time to at least look at that really seriously, map it out before you make a leap, and see if that's something that works for them, or is that something they have a tolerance for risk for.
Yeah, the tolerance for risk is definitely a big piece of the pie. You at least have to have some tolerance for risk to make the jump, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that never goes away. That's
Yeah. That's for sure. Okay, Doug, people who listen to this might want to connect with you, might want to hear more, look more into your company. How do they find your company? How do they find you? What's the best ways to do all that stuff?
Yeah, right now, if you go to whatsnext.com, and that's WHATSNKST.com, that's a good way to look at the company. We're also on LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn, so if you want to, reach out that way, I'm very accessible on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Doug, really appreciate your time today. Fascinating conversation. And as you keep implementing AI tools and stuff, love to hear more about that. If you don't mind shooting me a line.
No, definitely. Great to stay in touch, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Doug.